Dear Diary, it's strange that I'm doing this whole journaling thing over again. I feel as if I'm in my youth, foolish and free, resorting to confiding in a diary rather than bearing the burden of dealing with the reactions of my family when I've thought of something controversial. Something that I dare not confront anyone about in fear of judgment. Something that I mustn't let slip, no matter what the consequences are. I must stay true to that promise I've made to myself, not to let this hurt them, like how they were hurt when it happened to my parents. I guess I'm still in denial about it now, even though I know that these doctors are professionals and they know how to diagnose all ailments from A to Z. I just don't believe, I simply refuse to. Not to me. This wouldn't happen to me. I am healthy, aren't I? I remember to eat 3 meals a day and have the correct amount of nutrients in each meal. I remember to exercise for hours daily, walking back and forth on the promenade whilst watching the ocean waves crash down onto the sand. But it still wasn't enough, is a feeling I have to learn to get behind, cliché as it may sound. Oh dear, I really have regressed into an emotional teenager. Dear Diary, I must admit, I have been starting to learn that I will have to accept things for the way they are. We only have a certain amount of control over our own lives. You may try to do everything you can just to prevent something you think you have control over, something you think will dramatically change your life for the worse, so badly that you're unrecognisable. You think that this will help you to enjoy the future. You're always looking forward to it, thinking, the best is yet to come. You tell yourself, I'm doing this now for later. I'm doing all this on the weekend so I can come home early on Monday. The children can preoccupy themselves. We still have plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to spend with them, don't we? Well, before you know it, your children have gone off and they are on their way to university. But they still come home every month, so it's all right, isn't it? You still have plenty of time to spend with them, don't you? And then they go away and start working at their first job. But they still come home every Christmas, so it's all right, isn't it? We can still spend plenty of time together, celebrating birthdays and so on. After all, absence is what makes the heart grow fonder. It's special now. You appreciate them more. But why couldn't you appreciate them more to begin with? Why did you have to wait all this time? But never mind, you still have plenty of time left to spend with them. All of a sudden, they have children of their own, and they are so busy with all the things that come along with being a new parent. They're busy going on outings with them, they're busy going on surfing holidays with them, or they're busy teaching them how to tie their shoelaces. Now, they only see you once a year if you're lucky. It's not your fault they live so far away. Suddenly, that audit doesn't seem so important now, does it? Dear Diary, I can't help feel a sense of dread over my body as I start to reflect on the trajectory of my future. I must preserve every memory that I have, encase them somehow, build more. I still lament about how I should have done things differently, how I had every opportunity to spend more time with my loved ones. But you just don't really think about that too much at the time, though, do you? Well, that would be my advice. If I had to present a speech to the younger generation, savour the moment as much as you can. Never wait for later. Later is too late. But nevertheless, later is better than never, isn't it? Well, that's why I've decided to make a bucket list of all the things I want to accomplish before this illness takes over my body and turns me into something unrecognisable. Someone who I wouldn't recognise anymore. You know, I've always wanted to live in a mid-century modern house with all that beautiful mahogany furniture and Bauhaus prints all over the pale orange and lime green walls, with the turntables howling music in the background. So maybe that's what I'll spend all this redundant money on. Another one would be I want to visit the Netherlands with my children. Throughout my youth, I'd always been enamoured with the band Shocking Blue, and there was a museum dedicated to them in The Hague. Wouldn't it be wonderful to talk about all things psychedelic rock? They would hear all the twists and turns of my younger years, to which Shocking Blue was always there to comfort me. I could tell them about the history of music. The history of me. Yes, that'll certainly make it onto my bucket list. I want to go and try skiing in the Alps with my family. I want to feel that rejuvenating breeze brush past my skin again. I want to take awkward photos whilst trying to smile when I'm concentrating on swerving around the moguls. I want to go on that 6-person chairlift with my grandchildren and hope that they'll be more experienced than I am. Dear Diary, well, I just got handed the keys the other day, and we've been busy moving furniture this way and that. The problem is, I can't recall exactly which corner I wanted my wine chair to be in. Yes, it is a chair with a built-in wine compartment, let's just say, for convenience's sake. I want to laugh it off, but then I have that aching feeling in the back of my mind. Something like this is a sign of the dementia deteriorating. I often think of it as being like the sea when it washes up things on the sand. In the beginning, getting the diagnosis isn't entirely negative, as it reveals new opportunities, and it is an excuse to prioritise things that you thought you would never have dreamed of doing in such quick succession. Like finding hidden pearlescent shells, you reminisce on the ever so precious memories that you will never get back. You spend hours going through the photo album, maybe alone, maybe with your family. But either way, it is precious to be able to reminisce back on things and replay them in your head over and over again like a broken record. Much like listening to your old favourite song again, you get struck with all the emotions you used to feel back in those days. All the feelings of naive uncertainty and nostalgia confront you again, allowing you to relive them once more. I want to be able to do that for as long as possible. Dear Diary, another thing I've decided to add to my bucket list was to start playing the old music I used to listen to for my grandchildren whenever they come over. I feel as if you can express so much even in just one song, and I would like to be able to share that with them, even if they will not be able to associate my own memories of my youth with the songs. Hopefully one day they will be able to connect my songs to memories of their own. I knelt over to select one of my favourite Shocking Blue albums from the big wooden chest next to the record player as my grandchildren sat excitedly on the new, but familiar, orange sofas. I flicked through the cases, trying to recall what the songs on each album sounded like. I wavered as I looked at each one, for much longer than I usually would, until I could vaguely imagine the bassline beats to each song. These songs were once close to my heart, and now they were murky and distant. I tried my best to conceal it as I stumbled over slightly, dropping the precious vinyl on the cold wooden floor before I put it on the turntable. I turned it on in anticipation. What used to seem like a ritual was starting to feel unnatural. Not quite like not being able to remember something is like, but rather it feels distant. Almost as if you needed to think about how to brush your teeth before you do it, when normally you would just do it automatically. The music was distorted, as the grooves, once permanently etched onto the record, are now deep, jagged scars, playing the anthem of my new reality. My grandchildren sat there, forlornly looking at the spinning vinyl with confusion in their innocent eyes, not understanding the concept of this illness, not fully grasping it. They listened and sat there, and just stared at the record player as I started to prepare their lunch. They weren't prepared for this. They weren't prepared to watch me decline, as they will eventually sit there, staring at me, confusion in their innocent eyes, instead maybe listening to the hum of machinery around me, turning into white noise as their eyes become dark with tears. That is something I will never be prepared for. Dear Diary, I feel worried. The other day, I tried to make a cup of tea. It was rosebud and hibiscus. Well, I turned the kettle on, and perhaps absent-mindedly put the tea bag in the kettle. Maybe my mind was elsewhere that day. I mean, I did have a routine checkup appointment at the surgery. I must have been thinking about that. I've been irritable lately. Frustrated. I'm aware that I am becoming more clumsy. Things that would just normally be a part of my routine are becoming arduous, mentally exhausting. I have to think more and more before acting upon things. Still thinking about how I could have possibly put the tea bag in the kettle. I will have to think about things a little more before acting upon them. Yes, that'll be the solution. Dear Diary, I went to visit my daughter today. I felt like I just had to tell her, she deserves to know, doesn't she? But I couldn't. I couldn't bear that risk. I don't want to be a burden on her just like he was. I destroyed her completely. No, I mustn't let that happen. I opened the door, and I saw that she had bought some new shoes. They were red, shiny Mary Janes, and they glistened in the sunlight They were beautiful and suited her so well. That was until she reminded me that I had bought her those last year as a Christmas present. Now, I probably shouldn't have done this, but I told her I must have gotten those shoes mixed up with another pair of red shoes she had. After all, she was an avid collector. She asked me if I was all right. It wasn't like me to forget something like that, she said. It wasn't like me to talk to her like that, she said. But I've always had a stutter since childhood, I reminded her. Dear Diary, I just feel so incredibly embarrassed by what happened today. I was thinking about the soup I was going to make for lunch. I wrote a list of ingredients and walked into the supermarket feeling focused. I was looking for the cheese. Where had it got to this time? I laughed off and walked down the aisle, looking for the onions instead. Does a pea stew soup contain red or white onions? I don't think it matters, does it? I've made this soup plenty of times before, and nobody has ever commented on which type of onion they prefer it with. I couldn't find the onions. I checked every bag of vegetables, reading each label. Potatoes, tomatoes, peppers. Oh dear, they all look the same nowadays, don't they? It must be because they make their bags in the same shape, so it would be hard to tell, wouldn't it? And then the seafood, the best part of any dish. I went over and asked for 3 dozen oysters. I pointed to the mussels. The fishmonger gave me a concerned stare. I frowned, trying to brush it off. He said, "Sorry, ma'am. Those are just the empty shells of the mussels. We're just about to discard them. The oysters are over on the right. Those are just the empty shells. We're just about to discard them." I couldn't explain what happened next. It just sort of happened. Salt water welled up in my eyes, like the sea washing up on the sand. But there's beauty in that, isn't there? Because dainty, pearly, shiny things are left behind. Shells, sparkling in the sunlight. It's beautiful, isn't it? Dear Diary, again, another embarrassing event happened today. It's humiliating. Every time something like this happens, I just wish the sea would come and swallow me up and take me far away from here, to a place where I don't feel like an alien on my own planet. It's not me, is it? I saw my grandson today in the library. I was searching for the book The Lupo Stick by Valerie Blumenthal. As I walked through the maze, I encountered plenty of dead ends. But I did what you're supposed to do. I stuck to the right-hand side and stayed calm. Everything's going to turn out all right in the end. That's when I saw him, shining like a glow in the darkness that surrounded me. "Hello, I didn't think you would be here today," I blurted. He just stared at me blankly. "I don't think I know you. Sorry," he responded. My cheeks flushed red as I stumbled off trying to conceal it. My vision blurred. "Those are just the empty shells. We're just about to discard them." Those are just the empty shells. We're just about to discard them. Dear Diary, her name was just on the tip of my tongue. Her silhouette casted a familiar shadow I know I've seen many times before. I knew who she was. She stood there, smiling. I recognised that warm, loving smile. It looked familiar, like mine. "Come on in, darling," I trembled, trying to hide it from her. I saw the smile drop from her face as she stared vaguely at mine. "Mum, I think I've known about this for a long time. I was just wondering if—" I cut her off. "Never mind about that. Tell me about how you've been. You can't keep avoiding this." I turned red, my feet pattering on the floor of anxiety. "Not to me. This wouldn't happen to me. How could she know? You haven't bought Luke's birthday present yet, and I was wondering if I could help you choose something," she stammered. A sigh of relief exited my heaving lungs. "We shall go over to the beach tomorrow. It's only a short walk. We can pick out some pearly shells." You know he doesn't like things that remind him of the sea. Remember when he almost drowned while I was kayaking? Come on, Mum, you should know this by now. You were there for goodness sake. But I love the beach. I want to go to the beach, please. Mum, stop tugging on my coat. And stop talking to me like that, it's childish. Are you sure you're okay? I'm okay, darling. I tried to say more, but the words felt foreign, like they belonged to someone else. If you want to go to the beach, you should make a bucket list. I'm sure there's plenty of things you want to do later, in the future. The kids do love to visit. Yes, a bucket list. Sounds like a good idea. I feel like I've always wanted to do so much more than before. I feel like I want to start something new. I want to be refreshed. She is so clever, that girl. Yes, we shall make a bucket list. Would you like to stay for tea? Dear Diary, I feel frustrated. The doors merge together with the walls. The yellow windows blend with the blue ceiling like the sea washing up on the sand. I wonder what has happened to me. My body feels like a cage, and my skin, it feels sallow. I'm jolting in horror at every glance at that chair in the corner, its shape looming over me. I shiver in fright as I hear the washing machine hum, as the colours and shapes bundle up inside of it. I feel as if I'm in a stranger's house sometimes. It's frightening, but this stranger has good taste. They have left beautiful pearly things on the mantelpiece, and I can stare at them all day. It makes me feel as if I'm home again. I read the posters on the wall. Funny that you would hang them up, because they don't have any pictures, just words. They talk about wanting to go on holiday to the Alps a lot. I wonder if that's why they aren't home. Dear Diary, I do wonder sometimes, why don't my parents ever come to visit me? Sometimes I wait for hours on end, craning my neck at the window, longing for them to return from work. But they never came back for me. I hope they're alright, and please send my bestest regards. Tell them that I'm here, I'm waiting for them. With love. Running out into the wind, I can see someone there, waving at me. Kneeling down, I can see tiny pebbles. I step over them, ever so carefully. Gently, gently now. I don't want to hurt them. I love them. I know I do. It happened a week ago, but our wounds are still fresh. We called her name hoping to see that spark in her eyes, but instead her eyes met mine, puzzled, searching, as though I was just another face in the crowd. Each day she drifted further away. Her laughter and stories faded into a gradient of blue. I stood on the promenade one night as I watched her sail into a fog that I could not follow, cherishing the moments where she still smiled at the sound of my voice. You would have never been a burden, Mum, never. I read through the news article, the pain stabbing me like cracked shells, scraping down my neck. She got lost. In her own neighbourhood. In our neighbourhood. She must have walked for days, poor thing. It perplexes me why nobody tried to help her. They found her, stiff and cold, on the promenade, curled up like a little baby. Her mouth was frozen, permanently aghast, and her dark brown eyes, once glistening like the ocean at midnight, were cloudy and swollen. She was unrecognisable. I opened her book. The smell of bergamot and sea salt filled the air. I felt her warm embrace caving in around me. We knew each other once, but near the end, I was on her horizon, so far away, so far removed, like the irrelevance of a tiny lost pebble in the deep blue sea. She used to call me that. I was her pebble, and she was the sea, protecting me from the harsh winds and storms that would try to take me away from her. But she never let me go. That was until I was buried deep under the sand, out of plain sight. I knew she was right there. I felt her heart-wrenching presence with every wave goodbye, but to her I was lost under a deep layer of dementia. And tried as she might, she never managed to find me again. She used to know everything about sea life, she did. You would have known, just by talking to her. Her eyes would light up and she would speak endlessly about her voyages to the North Sea. She loved music as well, but she changed. She used to look at us, so focused and tentative, as if she was trying to read our minds when her music started to play. That was the last time I saw her. She was humming a tune from years ago, and for a moment she was herself again. Moments like those were always few, but they were ours. But I think she had been lost for a long time. I sniffle. But everything's going to be alright, because she's home now. Mum's shells stand solemn and precise on the mantelpiece, just how she had arranged them. There were 6 newly bought ski passes for the Alps tucked under one of them scheduled for next month. Next to that, a pile of leaflets titled Stedelijk Museum, The Hague, Child-Friendly Tourist Destinations, the Netherlands. Under all those leaflets there sat a note from the doctor's surgery, which read, Late-stage dementia, what to expect. Mum's bucket list hangs high and proud on the wall, the letters formed in her perfect copperplate handwriting. Inked in dark blue pen, now faded. Next month, we will feel a rejuvenating breeze brush past us as we ski down the mountains whilst whistling the songs of Shocking Blue before queuing up on the 6-person chairlift. She won't be there, of course, but we will be able to relax, knowing that she would be proud. As we sprinkled her ashes into the North Sea, the waves crashed down onto the sand, leaving all the beautiful pearlescent shells behind. I saw her in every one, her beautiful shine beaming out like the colours of the rainbow. Then the water crashed down and took them with it, the gradient of the blue waves singing the anthem of her story. I'll always love you, Mum, I whispered, my eyes glistening like ocean waves at midnight as we watched the sand mix with hers and travel far away into the distance.